The spray paint hissed like a cornered rattlesnake as it slashed across the brass numbers on my front gate. 742, the only marker of this patch of Texas dirt I'd clawed from nothing. "This ends now, you hillbilly queer," the woman shrieked, her voice cracking the still morning air like a judge's gavel. Her face twisted into a mask of suburban fury under that go-doffel bob haircut. I froze on the porch steps, coffee mug halfway to my lips, the steam curling up like the ghosts of every fight I'd ever lost, watching her ruin the one thing that said I belonged here. She didn't see me at first, too busy with her righteous vandalism, the can shaking in her manicured grip as if it held all the venom of 1,000 HOA meetings. By the time she spun around, caps snapping back on with a click that echoed my pounding heart, I was already striding down the gravel path, my boots crunching like bones underfoot. "Ma'am," I said, low and steady, the Marshal's drawl I'd honed over a decade slipping into place. "That's defacing private property. You just made this a whole lot worse than a fine." Her eyes widened, that predatory gleam flickering to panic as she clutched the can like a shield, backing toward her gleaming SUV parked crooked on my drive. You can't touch me. I'm on the board. This homestead of yours is an eyesore, dragging down property values for decent folk. Decent folk." The words landed like a sucker punch, stirring up the old ache, the one that had chased me from Dallas to this forgotten corner of Travis County, where the hills rolled like forgotten promises and the stars didn't judge. But she didn't know. Not yet. And as I reached for my badge, the weight of it heavy against my hip, I wondered if Joshua would laugh or cry when I told him about this latest circus. That night, as the sun bled orange over the live oaks, Joshua pulled up in his battered Ford, the headlights cutting through the dusk like a hesitant confession. He'd been working late at the feed store again, his hands rough from baling hay, smelling of earth and that faint, clean soap he favored, the kind that reminded me of Sunday mornings tangled in sheets we'd never quite straighten. "Heard about your gate," he said, stepping out with that lopsided grin, the one that crinkled his green eyes and made my chest tighten like a cinched saddle. He was all lean muscle and quiet strength, 28 to my 35, with sun-bleached hair that fell just so over his forehead, the kind of handsome that snuck up on you like a summer storm. I leaned against the porch rail, the fresh-painted numbers gleaming mockingly under the bug light. 742, stark white against the wrought iron. A temporary fix until I could get a proper replacement. Yeah, HOA's finest hour. Calls herself Karen, naturally. Board president with a vendetta against anything that doesn't look like a Stepford Wives catalog. I tried to laugh it off, but it came out jagged, scraping against the raw edge of the day. Joshua crossed the yard in 3 strides, his boots silent on the grass we'd planted together last spring, and pulled me into a hug that smelled like home. Sweat and sagebrush and the unspoken fears we both carried. "She's got no right," he murmured into my shoulder, his breath warm against my neck, fingers tracing the tense line of my spine. "This place, us, Sam. Our stake in something real." The word hung there, fragile as the wildflowers we'd scattered along the fence row, the ones that bloomed defiant against the prairie wind. We'd met 2 years back, him fresh from a stint in the Panhandle, running from a family that couldn't wrap their heads around a son who loved men the way he loved the wide open sky. I'd been the steady one, the county marshal with a badge that commanded respect but couldn't command love. Not until Joshua showed up at the station, filing a report on a stolen truck, his voice steady but eyes darting like a colt in a stall. That first night, after the paperwork, we'd ended up at the roadhouse, nursing beers under neon signs that buzzed like fireflies. "You ever feel like you're trespassing on your own life?" he'd asked, staring into the foam as if it held answers. I'd nodded, the weight of my own secrets pressing down. The ex-wife I'd buried in a divorce papers avalanche. The closet I'd cracked open only after her leaving took half my soul with it. By closing time, we'd stumbled out into the gravel lot, his hand brushing mine accidental on purpose, and in the shadow of my cruiser, we'd kissed like men drowning, all salt and urgency and the promise of tomorrow. Now, 2 years in, our homestead was that promise made solid. The creaky cabin we'd fixed up with sweat and secondhand lumber, the garden where tomatoes burst red against the fence, the swing on the porch where we'd watch thunderstorms roll in, his head on my shoulder, whispering dreams of a future without hiding. But the HOA loomed like a thunderhead on the horizon, Eagle Ridge Estates, a gated McMansion sprawl that bled into our county line, gobbling up land with covenants thicker than the Bible. They'd petitioned to annex our parcel last spring, citing aesthetic inconsistencies, code for my off-grid solar panels, and the rainbow flag I'd hung unapologetically on the barn after Pride. Karen Whitaker was their spearhead, a transplant from Houston with a real estate license and a chip on her shoulder the size of the Astrodome. 50-something, pearls and power suits, the kind of woman who weaponized potlucks and passive-aggressive emails. She'd cornered me at the county fair once, hissing about standards while eyeing Joshua like he was the dirt on her Louboutins. "Your arrangement," she'd spat, "is unbecoming. Think of the children." As if our love was a blight on the minivans. Joshua pulled back, his hands framing my face, thumbs brushing the stubble I'd let grow too long. "We'll fight it. Together. Like always." His voice was a vow, but there was a shadow in his eyes, a flicker I couldn't place. Maybe the exhaustion from double shifts, or the call he'd taken from his sister last week, the one about their dying ma back in Amarillo. Family pulled at him like gravity, a tether I respected but couldn't share. I nodded, pulling him close again, our foreheads touching in that quiet communion that said more than words ever could. But as we sat on the swing that night, creaking under our weight, the crickets chorusing our silence, I couldn't shake the feeling that the paint on my gate was just the first stroke of a larger erasure. Little did I know, Joshua was holding back a brush of his own. The next morning dawned sticky with humidity, the kind that clung to your skin like regret. I was knee-deep in paperwork at the station, a stack of liens and lost dogs that never seemed to shrink, when my deputy Rosa poked her head in, her braids swinging like a pendulum. "Sam, you got a visitor. Upscale type. Says it's about your personal decor." Her eyebrow arched, the subtext clear. Trouble with a capital T. I straightened my tie, more habit than necessity in this podunk outpost, and stepped into the bullpen. There she was, Karen Whitaker, perched on the edge of a plastic chair like it might contaminate her, clutching a manila folder emblazoned with the Eagle Ridge logo. Her lips pursed into a thin line as I approached, the air between us thick with the scent of Chanel No. 5 and entitlement. "Marshal Hayes," she said, not rising, her voice dripping honey over thorns. "I assume you've seen my correction to your signage. Consider it a neighborly gesture." "Neighborly?" I echoed, crossing my arms, the badge on my chest catching the fluorescent glare. "Last I checked, vandalism isn't covered under good fences make good neighbors. You want to explain yourself before I start citing statutes?" Her laugh was a brittle tinkling, like wind chimes in a gale. "Oh, please. Your little homestead is a zoning nightmare. Unpermitted structures, unregulated livestock. That goat of yours bleats at all hours. We're just enforcing community standards." She slid the folder across the desk, pages rustling like whispers. "Sign this petition for annexation, and we can make it all go away. Join us. Be civilized." Civilized. The words slithered under my skin, evoking boardrooms and baptisms, places where men like me learned to smile through the slurs. I flipped open the folder, scanning the legalese, eminent domain threats, aesthetic compliance clauses that would strip our solar array and force a white picket fence where wild grasses grew. At the bottom, a signature line, and there, in fresh ink, Joshua's name, scrawled hasty, but unmistakable. My stomach dropped like a stone in the Pedernales, the room tilting. "Joshua signed this?" My voice came out rough, scraped raw. Karen's smile sharpened. "Your partner?" "Yes, he was most cooperative at last night's meeting. Said something about family obligations pulling him away from your eccentricities. Smart boy. Knows when to choose progress over nostalgia." I closed the folder with a snap that echoed too loud, my pulse thundering in my ears. Betrayal tasted like rust on my tongue, sharp and metallic. Joshua, my Joshua, who'd traced constellations on my back under starlit skies, who'd vowed we'd weather any storm, had gone behind my back. For what? To appease ghosts? Or worse, to buy peace in a world that still saw us as footnotes. Get out, I said, low and final, pointing to the door. And tell you're bored. Touch my property again, and you'll meet the full weight of the law. Not as a neighbor, as the man sworn to uphold it. She rose, gathering her folder with the grace of a queen dethroned, but her parting shot lingered like smoke. You'll thank me when it's done, Marshal. Love like yours. It doesn't last in the wild. Needs taming. The door clicked shut behind her, and I sank into my chair, the badge suddenly heavy as an anchor. Outside, the Texas sun beat down mercilessly, turning the world to gold and shadow. I thought of Joshua's grin that morning, the easy way he'd kissed my temple before heading to work. See you at dusk, cowboy. Lies layered like dust on a trail. By evening, I was home before him, the gate's fresh numbers mocking me from the drive. I paced the porch, the swing idle, the air heavy with unshed rain. When his truck rumbled up, headlights slicing the gathering dark, I stepped forward, arms crossed like a barricade. He hopped out, toolbox in hand. Tools for what? Fixing us. His face lighting up until it didn't. Sam? What's wrong? I held up the folder, Joshua's signature a black wound on the page. This. Explain. His color drained, green eyes widening like a fawn in crosshairs. It's not God, Sam. It's not what you think. Ma's medical bills. The HOA offered a payout for signing early. I didn't tell you, 'cause I was gonna tear it up. I swear. Swear. The word fractured something in me. Echoes of my father's Bible-thumping oaths before he disowned me for choosing wrong. You signed away our home, Josh. Our life. For money. No. He dropped the toolbox, metal clanging like a dropped gauntlet. Stepping close enough I could see the plea in his pores. For us. To buy time. Karen cornered me, said if we didn't sign, they'd sue you out of office. Conflict of interest, they called it. Your job, Sam. I couldn't let them take that too. As if we'd already lost pieces of ourselves. I turned away, the wildflowers blurring in my vision, their petals fragile against the wind. You should have trusted me, fought with me, not alone. Like I'm some damsel in your redemption arc. He reached for me, fingers grazing my arm, electric as the first touch years ago. I was scared of losing you to this fight. You're the steady one, Sam, the marshal who stares down storms. I'm just the ranch hand who follows. The roles we'd fallen into, comfortable as worn boots, now chafing like ill-fit spurs. Rain began to patter, soft at first, then insistent, soaking us through as we stood there, the folder sodden between us. I love you, he whispered, voice breaking like thunder. More than land, more than legacy. Let me fix this. I wanted to believe him, to pull him under the porch and let the storm wash away the doubt. But betrayal's stain ran deep, like paint on brass, and as lightning cracked the sky, I wondered if some things, once marred, could ever shine true again. The days blurred into a tense truce, Joshua sleeping on the couch with a pillow barricade between us, his eyes hollow from unspoken apologies. I threw myself into work. Patrols along the county line where Eagle Ridge's manicured lawns met our tangled scrub, pulling over speeders with a sharper edge than usual. Rosa noticed, of course. She always did, her coffee-black eyes missing nothing. Trouble in paradise? She'd ask over lukewarm Joe in the break room, her voice a lifeline tossed casual. Just the usual, I'd mutter, stirring sugar I didn't need. But it was more. The petition festering like an untended wound. Neighbors whispering at the diner about that Marshal and his boyfriend's funny business. Small towns had long memories and short fuses, and Eagle Ridge was bleeding resentment into our veins. Joshua tried. God, did he try? Mornings, he'd leave notes on the fridge. Simple things like, coffee's hot. Thinking of you. Scratched in his blocky hand. Evenings, he'd cook. Chili from his ma's recipe, the spice biting just right, and we'd eat in silence, fork scraping plates like accusations. One night, after a double shift chasing cattle rustlers, I found him on the porch swing, strumming his old guitar, the melody a mournful twang that tugged at my gut. Come sit. he said, not looking up, fingers dancing over strings worn smooth by years of worry. I hesitated, then sank beside him, the wood groaning under us. The song was one I'd never heard, lyrics about lost trails and found hearts. His voice rough as gravel but tender as dawn. Who wrote that? I asked when he trailed off, the last note hanging. He set the guitar aside, turning to me with eyes like polished jade. No one. Me. For you. The vulnerability cracked something in my chest. A fissure letting light through the dark. Josh. Why'd you really sign? He exhaled slow, like releasing a held breath. Fear. Ma's dying, Sam. Cancer's got her down to bones, and the bills. They're a mountain. HOA dangled that carrot. Annexation payout could cover it all. I thought, one signature and I save her without dragging you down. But it was pride too. Proving I could handle something without leaning on the Marshal. I took his hand, calluses rough against mine. The touch grounding as earth after rain. We're a team, remember? Your ma's family, our family. We'll figure the bills. Crowdfund, second job, whatever. But secrets? They poison the well. He nodded, tears tracking clean paths through the dust on his cheeks. I know. And I tore up my copy that night. But Karen, she's not done. Says the board's voting tomorrow on eminent domain. Full force. The words landed heavy, but in his gaze, I saw the fight reignite. The same spark that had drawn me to him that first night at the roadhouse. We talked then, really talked, mapping plans over lukewarm beer. Legal aid from Austin, allies on the council, a public stand at the meeting. By midnight, his head was on my lap, my fingers carting through his hair, the rhythm lulling us toward fragile peace. But dawn brought the hammer. Rosa burst into the station, phone in hand, her face thunderous. Sam, it's bad. HOA just filed emergency injunction. They're claiming your homestead's a public nuisance, citing moral decay in the affidavits. Anonymous sources, but it's aimed square at you too. Moral decay. The phrase slithered from depositions I'd read in vice cases, now twisted against my love like a noose. I grabbed my keys, the badge a cold comfort. Where's the meeting? Eagle Ridge Clubhouse. Now. Joshua met me there, his truck already parked among the SUVs, face set like flint. We walked in together, shoulders brushing. A united front against the room of pressed khakis and pearl clutches. Karen stood at the podium, projector humming behind her, slides ticking through aerial shots of our land. The barn with its flag, the goat pen, us on the swing captured sneaky-like by drone. Ladies and gentlemen, she intoned, voice syrup-sweet. This eyesore threatens our values. Unregulated, unchristian, untrue. Joshua's voice cut sharp, stepping forward before I could. Heads swiveled, murmurs rippling. That land's legal, homesteaded fair. And love? It's not your commodity to judge. Karen's smile faltered. Mr. Hale, your involvement is noted. But signatures don't lie. He flushed, but held ground. Mine was coerced. And Marshal Hayes here? He's the law. Touch his property, you touch the county. I stepped up then, badge glinting under the fluorescence. That's right. Petition denied. Injunctions baseless. I'll countersue for harassment by week's end. Gasps echoed. Chairs scraping as allies I'd forgotten. Old ranchers, queer couples from the edges, stood in support. Karen's face crumpled, venom to vulnerability. You don't understand. My husband's firm. It's all leveraged on this expansion. If it fails. Empathy's a two-way street, ma'am, I said, softer than she deserved. Pull back now and we call it even. No charges. Just live and let live. She nodded, defeated, the room exhaling as the vote crumbled. Outside, rain lashed the clubhouse windows, but inside, a tentative thaw. That night, back home, the storm broke full, sheets of water drumming the tin roof as Joshua and I stood in the garden. Mud to our ankles, uprooting weeds that had crept in during our strife. We did it, he said, grinning fierce, pulling me close. We did. Our kiss was salt and soil, deep as roots, the kind that promised endurance. But as lightning forked the sky, illuminating the wildflowers resilient in the deluge, I knew peace was attending, not a conquest. A daily choice to paint over the scars, number by number, heart by heart. Months later, the gate stood unmarred, 742 etched permanent in brass. Joshua's ma passed gentle in hospice, bills eased by a community fund we'd sparked. Neighbors pitching in, stories shared over fences. Karen sold her place, moved to Florida, they said, chasing sun and second chances. We hung a new flag, double-stitched, and planted more flowers, defiant blooms for every storm weathered. Love, in the end, isn't a homestead you defend. It's the wild growth that claims you back. And in that claiming we found our truest claim, to each other unapologetic under the vast American sky. The air in the station hung thick after Karen's exit, the folder's echo mocking me from the desk. I drove home slow, windows down, letting the wind whip away the day's grime. But Joshua's signature burned behind my eyes like a brand. Our homestead appeared through the dusk, lights flickering from the solar lanterns we'd hung together. A beacon I'd once thought unbreakable. Now it felt like a stage set for reckoning. Joshua was in the kitchen when I walked in, sleeves rolled up, chopping onions with that focused intensity he got when nerves jangled. The sizzle of beef in the skillet filled the silence, savory and accusatory. "Smells good," I said, hanging my hat on the peg, voice neutral as a deputy's report. He glanced up, knife pausing mid-slice, his face a map of hope and hurt. "Tacos, your favorite." He set the knife down, wiping hands on a dish towel mine, faded from too many washes, and crossed to me. "Sam, about the petition." "Not tonight." I held up a hand, the gesture sharper than intended. "I'm wrung out. Let's just eat." We did, at the scarred oak table we'd salvaged from a foreclosure auction. Plates piled high with ground beef, lettuce crisp as new bills, salsa biting with jalapenos from our garden. Conversation skimmed surfaces. Rose's latest quip about a feral cat posse, the drought's toll on the hay crop, but under it, tension hummed like power lines in a gale. After, as he washed dishes and I dried, our elbows brushed. A spark that once ignited laughter now singed. "I love you," he murmured, suds dripping from his forearms, eyes searching mine over the sink. "I know," but the words felt hollow, a reflex stripped of conviction. I hung the towel, retreating to the porch where the night air cooled the flush of anger. Stars wheeled overhead, indifferent witnesses, and I wondered how many couples like us. Two men carving space in a land of straight lines, cracked under such weight. Joshua joined me eventually, 2 beers in hand, condensation beating cold. He handed one over without a word, settling on the step below, his back to my knee, a barrier of inches. "It was a mistake," he started, voice low. "Karen emailed the petition after hours, all urgent-like. Said it'd buffer the annex if enough signatures. I printed it, signed quick, thinking I'd stall him till you got home." "Stall?" I took a pull from the bottle, the bitter hop cutting sharp. "By selling us out?" He twisted to face me, green eyes fierce in the bug light's glow. "Not selling, protecting. Your badge is your armor, Sam, but it's also a target. If they prove bias." "Bias?" The word exploded, beer sloshing. "Loving you is bias now? Christ, Josh. That's their poison, not ours." He recoiled as if slapped, but held ground. "It's their world. We navigate it. I navigated wrong, I get that. But tearing it up doesn't erase the ink." No, it didn't. Ink like blood, permanent as the tattoos we'd inked on each other last summer in a Austin parlor. His name on my ribcage, mine on his collarbone, hidden promises under cotton. I sighed, the fight leaching out with the exhale. "Bed. We'll talk tomorrow." The couch that night was a cold exile, springs poking like regrets. I lay awake, listening to rain patter tentative on the roof, Joshua's snores ragged from the armchair across the room. Dawn crept in gray, finding me with coffee black as my mood, staring at the gate's white paint flaking already under humidity's assault. Work dragged. Traffic stops on 290. A domestic call that twisted my gut with echoes of my own fractures. By lunch, Rosa cornered me in the lot, her cruiser idling beside mine. Spill haze. You look like you swallowed a porcupine. I leaned on the hood, the metal warm from sun. Joshua signed an HOA petition. Behind my back. She whistled low, braid swinging. Oof. For what? The greater good. Something like that. I rubbed my jaw, stubble rasping. Feels like betrayal, Rosa. Like he doesn't trust me to fight. Or trusts you too much to let you bleed. She clapped my shoulder, wise beyond her 30 years. Men like us were wired to protect. Sometimes it backfires. Talk it out or it'll fester. Her words lingered as I headed home, the county line blurring into memory. Joshua was there, toolbox open on the porch, sanding a new gate plaque. 742 carved careful in oak. For the brass, he said without preamble, not meeting my eyes. Something solid. I nodded, throat tight. Good. We worked side by side then, silence companionable as we affixed it temporary. His arm brushing mine in rhythm. Dusk fell soft, fireflies winking approval, and as we stepped back to admire, his hand found mine. Tentative, then firm. I'm sorry, Sam, for the secret, for making you doubt. I squeezed back, the knot in my chest loosening a thread. Doubt's part of it, but we're stronger than paper. That night, the couch stayed empty. We tangled slow in our bed, kisses mapping apologies, bodies speaking what words fumbled. It wasn't fixed, not wholly, but it was a bridge, creaky but crossing. File to end. The fragile mend held through a week of cautious normalcy. Shared shifts at the feed store for him, patrols veering clear of Eagle Ridge for me. We'd text through the day, silly memes, grocery lists laced with heart emojis. A digital tether mending the rip. But undercurrents swirled. Karen's emails pinged my county inbox. Veiled threats wrapped in legalese. Petitions circulating like flu in flu season. One evening, after a dust-up with poachers on the riverbank, I found Joshua on the barn roof, patching shingles with tar black as midnight. The latter leaned precarious, his jeans streaked, sweat sheening his back under the tank top. Need a hand, I called, tossing up the hammer he'd forgotten. He grinned down, wiping brow with forearm. Always. We worked till stars pricked the sky, the rhythm sinking us like old times. Nail to wood, laugh to echo. Descending, his boot slipped a rung, and I caught him mid-fall, arms banding his waist, our breaths mingling close. Got you? I murmured, the words double-edged. Always, he echoed, lips brushing mine in thanks. Inside, over cold cuts and cornbread, he broached the shadow. Ma called. Chemo's rough. Says she's tired of fighting. My fork paused, empathy twisting. We'll drive up weekend. See her. His eyes softened, gratitude raw. You'd do that. For you. For us. The us felt solid again. A foundation shored against tides. But Saturday's drive to Amarillo stretched the men thin. The panhandle unfolded barren. Windmills creaking like weary sentinels. Radio humming country laments that mirrored our quiet. Joshua's hand rested on my thigh, thumb circling absent, but his gaze fixed distant, jaw tight. At the hospice, his ma lay frail in starched sheets, skin translucent as onion skin, eyes bright despite the hollows. Samuel, she whispered, gripping my hand with surprising strength, her voice a rasp of tobacco years. Heard you're keeping my boy in line. I chuckled, throat bobbing. Trying, ma'am. He's stubborn as a mule. She eyed Joshua, love fierce in her gaze. Good. Mules pull heavy loads. Later, as she dozed, Joshua stepped out for air, leaving me with her Bible on the nightstand. Dog-eared at Leviticus, but a rainbow bookmark peeking from Psalms. He struggles, she murmured, waking brief. Family's hard line. But you're his grace. Grace. The word settled warm, chasing doubts. Outside, Joshua leaned on the hood, staring at scrubland. Thanks for coming. Means everything. I pulled him close, chin on his crown. Family, remember? The return trip lightened, windows down, wind tousling his hair as he sang off-key to Willie Nelson. My laughter free. Home. We collapsed into bed, limbs entwined, the drive's weariness melting into intimacy. Kisses lazy, hands exploring familiar terrain with renewed wonder. I love you. He breathed against my neck, vow renewed. Prove it tomorrow. Teasing, but the spark caught. Morning finding us in the garden. Knees muddied. Planting heirloom seeds from his ma's stash. Tomatoes red as redemption. Beans climbing like hope. Monday brought the serpent's hiss. Rose's urgent text. HOA filing at clerk's. Get here now. I raced to the courthouse. Badge parting the lobby crowd like Moses' staff. Karen stood at the counter. Documents fanned triumphant. Her lawyer a slick weasel in pinstripes. Marshal, she purred, not turning. Witnessing progress? Stopping it. I slapped my countersuit down. Harassment, defamation, the works. Rose's research compiled overnight. The clerk blinked, stamping frantic. Her lawyer sputtered. This is premature. Call it proactive. I leaned in, voice steel. Your moral decay clause? Sloppy bigotry. Judge'll eat it alive. Karen whirled, face ashen. You'll regret. Doubt it. I nodded to the clerk. Process mine first. Outside, victory buzzed, but hollow. Joshua's text lit my phone. Board meeting tonight. They want my head. Coming? Damn right. The clubhouse loomed like a coliseum. Parking lot jammed with sedans. Inside, the air reeked of coffee and cologne. Board members fidgeting under fluorescent glare. Karen presided, gavel in hand, but her eyes darted as Joshua and I entered. His chin high, my hand light on his back. Mr. Hale, she started, voice strained. Your recantation is noted, but nothing. Joshua stepped forward, voice steady as prairie grass. You coerced signatures, spread lies. We're done dancing. Murmurs swelled, a gray-haired rancher. Old Mr. Thibodeau, whose spread bordered ours, rising slow. Boys right. This annex is greed. Not good. I vote nay. One by one, cracks spidered. The young couple with the Prius. The widow who'd lost her husband to the same cancer as Joshua's ma. Karen pounded futile, her empire crumbling to dust. As we filed out, rain sheeting the windows, she caught my arm. Desperate, not defiant. Please. My home. Build on better ground. I said gentle. Hate's poor foundation. Joshua waited in the truck, rain drumming, his smile breaking wide when I slid in. We won. We did. Our kiss tasted of triumph, salt-laced, the storm outside paling to the one we'd weathered within. The wind's afterglow lingered like summer haze, coloring days with tentative gold. Joshua took on extra hours at the store, socking away for his ma's final care, while I navigated the paperwork fallout. Depositions dodged, a judge's gavel echoing my own small justice. Evenings, we'd decompress on the porch, his feet in my lap, my fingers kneading knots from his calves, stories spilling easy. A customer's mangy dog, a speeder's tall tale. One twilight, as cicadas chorused, he broached the future, casual like testing wind. After ma, maybe expand the garden. Chickens, too. Make this place hum. I grinned, tracing his instep. Chickens? You're on coop duty. Deal. His laugh bubbled free, head tipping back, Adam's apple bobbing. A sight that still stole my breath. That night, lovemaking was playful, bodies laughing through fumbles, reaffirming the bond no ink could sever. But shadows lengthened subtle. Whispers at the diner. That Marshal's boy caused a stir. Pricked like burrs. Karen vanished from sight, her for sale sign sprouting weeds. But her absence echoed louder than presence. Joshua withdrew slight, phone calls to his sister lengthening, voice muffled through walls. I chalked it to grief, his ma fading fast, hospice updates grim. Tell me? I pressed one morning over eggs, his gaze evading. Later, he murmured, kissing my temple hasty. Work calls. Doubt crept insidious, a vine-tangling trust. Rosa sensed it, pulling me aside post-patrol. Eyes on the road, Sam. Not the rear view. Easier said. I holstered my sidearm, the weight familiar but weary. Feels like waiting for the other boot. She squeezed my bicep. Boots drop. You dodge or dance. Dancing came natural with Joshua. Two-step at the Roadhouse Saturday. His hips swaying against mine to steel guitar wails. Beers sweating on the bar. Remember our first? He yelled over the din, breath hot on my ear. How could I forget? That kiss in the lot, world narrowing to his taste. Beer and possibility. We spun till boots scuffed, collapsing home to the couch. Tangled in laughter and limbs, the night a bomb. Sunday brunch with Rosa and her wife, Elena. Tortillas steaming, mimosas fizzing, eased the coil. To underdogs, Elena toasted, her artist hands gesturing broad. And the Marshals who bite back. Joshua clinked glasses, eyes crinkling. Here, here. But Monday's mail brought the barb. A letter from his sister's firm, typed formal, inheritance dispute, family land in the Panhandle tied to traditional values. Joshua crumpled it unread at my shoulder, but the crease lingered. Talk, I said that eve, fire crackling in the hearth we built last winter. He poked embers, sparks flying fugitive. Sis wants me to contest Ma's will. Leave it all to her. For the grandkids. Says my lifestyle disqualifies. Rage simmered low. Bull. It's blood money. Yeah. He turned, vulnerability cracking his guard. But part of me wonders if they're right. If I dragged you into this mess. I crossed to him, hands framing his face. Thumbs on cheekbones sharp. You're no drag. You're the wind in my sails, Josh. Family's flawed, but ours? We choose it. Tears welled, but he blinked them back, nodding fierce. Choose you. Always. We made love by firelight then. Slow and sacred, bodies mapping affirmations. Every scar, every curve a testament. Dawn found us sated, plans hatching. A trip to the lawyer in Austin, wills redrawn to spite the spiteful. Midweek, the call came. Joshua's ma, gone peaceful at dawn. He shattered quiet, sobs racking as I held him on the kitchen floor, coffee spilling forgotten. She's free, he gasped eventually. But God, Sam, it hurts. I know. Rocking him gentle, my own tears silent tracks. We buried her Tuesday, Panhandle dirt red as rust. Kin glaring from pews but Elena and Rosa flanking us staunch. Joshua's eulogy trembled but soared. She taught me love's the strongest claim, drawing nods even from stone faces. Homeward, the highway hummed healing, his hand in mine over the console. Thank you, he whispered at a stoplight, green eyes clear, for standing side by side. The promise sealed with a kiss, traffic be damned. Yet grief's tide ebbed uneven. Nights he'd wake thrashing, dreams of exclusion chasing him. I'd soothe with whispers, arms anchor, but the vine tightened. His silences lengthening. A new job offer from a Lubbock co-op whispered tentative. More pay, he said over dinner, fork pushing peas. Better for us. The word echoed, but Lubbock meant distance. Eagle Ridge a memory, but new frontiers fraught. Think on it. I hedged, heart clenching. He nodded, but the seed rooted doubt anew. The Lubbock shadow loomed, conversations circling like hawks. Pros of stability, cons of separation. His ambition a quiet fire I'd always fanned. It's not leaving, he'd insist, pacing the living room, boots thudding carpet. Just a step up. Weekends here, calls every night. Nights blurred to arguments veiled. My patrols stretching longer, his applications polished in secret. Rosa clocked it, ambushing me at the station with donuts glazed gilt. Spit it, Hayes. You're wound tighter than barbed wire. Job offer for him. Out west. I dunked a cruller, sugar-sticking throat. Feels like running. Or reaching. She eyed me sage. Talk roots, not routes. What anchors you two? Anchors. Our homestead. The garden thriving now with autumn's gold. Squash bulging. Leaves turning flame. That weekend, we harvested under harvest moon. baskets brimming, sweat mingling as we stacked the shed. This, I said, gesturing broad, is root. Lubbock's soil's different. He paused, pitchfork mid-turn, face softening. Maybe, but dreams shift, Sam, like clouds. Clouds passed, but the offer crystallized. Accepted Monday, resignation tendered gentle. Trial basis, he framed it, packing a duffel hesitant. See if it fits. The drive to drop him was silent agony. 290 stretching endless. Radio off. At the motel edge of town, he lingered in the cab, hand on door. Call tonight. Every night. Our kiss goodbye tasted ash, his truck taillights fading to pinpricks. Alone. The house echoed hollow. Bed too vast. Kitchen chairs mocking multiplicity. Patrols filled voids. But nights crawled. Phone glowing with texts. Miss you already. Thinking of the swing. I replied steady. But sleep evaded. Dreams of gates painted over. Numbers erased. Week 2. Karen resurfaced. Not venomous, but veiled. A coffee at the diner for old times. Her bob grayer, eyes ringed fatigue. Sold the house. Starting over in Austin. Good for you. Neutral, but curiosity piqued. She stirred cream endless. You were right. Hate's no foundation. My husband's gone now, cancer, ironic. Left me building ghosts. Empathy stirred, reluctant. Build real. Communities there if you reach. She nodded, leaving a card therapy group. For folks like us, learning grace. Unexpected, but the gesture lingered. A crack in armor. Joshua's calls anchored, voice crackling line. Tales of co-op chaos, starry panhandle nights. Come visit, he'd plead Fridays. I did, weekends blurring to blurs. Motel romps fervent. Drives debating return. It's good money, he'd say, but eyes homesick. Month 3, the break. A storm hit Lubbock fierce, flooding the co-op. His truck totaled in debris. Stranded, he called dawn cracked. Sam, I need you. I was there by noon, cruiser cutting mud, pulling him from the wreckage. Literal, figurative. Hotel that night. Rain lashing, we stripped barriers. It doesn't fit, he confessed, head on my chest. The job, the distance. I need our dirt. Relief flooded, tears mingling. Homes waiting. Return packed hasty. Homestead welcoming with open arms. Garden overgrown but resilient. Goat bleeding joyous. That night, fire lit, we vowed no more solos. Dreams shared, steps synced. But closure beckoned unfinished. Ma's estate hearing loomed. Sisters' lawyers circling predatory. We drove east together, hands clasped over gearshift, facing the fray united. Courthouse austere, kin arrayed adversarial, but Joshua's voice rang clear. Ma's will stands. Loves her legacy, not land. Judge concurred brisk, gavel falling final. Outside, sister approached tentative. Sorry. Grief twisted me. Embrace awkward but thawing. Homeward. Sun low. Joshua's head lulled my shoulder. Peace settling. We're solid, he murmured. Solid. The word mantra. Gates unbarred. Winter crept gentle. Holidays hearthwarm. Roses tamales. Elena's ornaments twinkling queer icons. New Year's, under fireworks, county fair bright. We toasted futures. Expansion plans sketched napkin rough. Rings whispered eventual. Spring bloomed defiant. Wildflowers rioting fence row. Our love the deepest root. Tended, tried, true. Yet trials temper, not tame. Summer scorched unforgiving. Drought cracking earth. Our well running shallow. Joshua fretted irrigation, nights pouring almanacs, while I mediated water rights squabbles. Eagle Ridge hoarding upstream, old grudges revived. They're at it again. I'd report evenings, dust-caked, his massage easing aches. One blistering July dawn. The call Jared. Rosa, voice edged. Shots fired. Your homestead. Get here. Heart slamming. I floored the cruiser. Sirens wailing empty roads. Smoke curled from our barn as I crested the hill. Flames licking hay bales. Joshua silhouetted frantic with hose. Arson! He yelled over roar, face smudged. Found the can. Karen's prints, I bet. Fire crew swarmed, dousing efficient, but damage gnawed. Beams charred, flags singed but salvaged. Inside the station, forensics confirmed. Gasoline, deliberate. Karen hauled in noon sharp, cuffs glinting ironic on her wrists. Interrogation room stark, her defiance wilted to wreck. I snapped, she confessed, tears carving clean. Lost everything, house, husband, pride. Your win. It broke me. Thought fire would. Even. The delusion chilled, but pity tempered fury. You could have asked for help, I said, badge heavy. That card you left? Use it. She nodded numb, led away to holding. Charges stuck. Arson, stalking, but Joshua's plea swayed. Community service, therapy mandated. Grace, he called it later, over scorched barn beams we'd salvaged for benches. Like she tried to give. Grace circled back, autumn painting hills amber. HOA remnants dissolved amicable, land reverting wild. Our parcel buffer now, anonymous donation from concerned neighbors shoring the well. Joshua's co-op ties yielded surplus hay, drought eased by rains biblical. Harvest festival rolled boisterous, fairgrounds alive with ribald calls, cotton candy clouds. We danced slow under strung lights. His chin hooked my shoulder, world fading to heartbeat sync. Marry me? He whispered mid-twirl. Ring box sly in pocket. Simple band, engraved 742. Tears pricked, joy surging. Yes, God, yes. Words spread wildfire, cheers erupting. Rosa whooping, Elena filming teary. Courthouse wedding swift, vows exchanged dawn-lit on our porch. Rosa officiating gruff tender. You too, you're the story worth telling. Honeymoon humble. Cabin in the hills, stars carpet overhead. Love unhurried as rivers. Return brought expansion. Coop clucking content, garden yielding bounty, neighbors drifting closer. Potlucks inclusive, stories swapped sands slant. Karen wrote once, from rehab, letter halting, hopeful. Learning to build better. Thanks for not burning me down. We visited eventual, coffee awkward but earnest. Her apology a bridge tentative. Years folded gentle. Joshua's feed store partnership thrived. My Marshal star steady. Badges passed to young blood like Rose's protege. Kids came borrowed. Nieces camping summers. Teaching fort building and fireflies secrets. Our flag weathered storms, colors vivid as first kiss. Old age crept sly, hair silvering synced, hands veined but clasped constant. On the porch swing, creak familiar, we'd recount. Paint on gates, signatures scrawled, fires quenched, the tapestry woven resilient. Best claim we staked, Joshua'd say, head my shoulder, sunset gilding us gold. Best life, I'd affirm, kiss temple soft. In that American wild, love proved not conquest, but communion, human, flawed, eternal as the hills we called home.